project has to start somewhere. Most forms of media like movies and music can just happen easily. All you need is a movie studio or production company or record label to increase your chances of getting it out to the public to see. Television, that's a different story. See, these networks like to see your premise and how your characters and story function as an episode, and see if they want to greenlight said project. This is called a pilot, the supposed first episode of your show. This is the main factor whether or not the network wants to see more of your fictional universe and test the waters for future audiences. But this isn't always the case. Sometimes the best ones won't get to see the light of day, while others that may not look so great get approved for being safe. So, what about those failed pilots? What made them stick out, or I guess, not stick, to certain audiences that never got a second chance beyond its test run? That's why I want to look at some of those pilots and boil down what makes them unique in their own way and if they deserve a better life on air. And yes, this is animated pilots. This whole channel is being dedicated towards the medium. So with that being said, let's take a look at another entry for this series, a cartoon that could have been.
Oh wow! That is relatable!
So, this episode is going to be a bit different, since we're actually looking at a pilot that was supposed to be a web cartoon series. One of the earlier popular cartoon channels on YouTube was Channel Frederator. You might actually remember that name, since Frederator has been in the animation game since 1997. Founded by Fred Seibert, this studio has been known for showcasing some very popular cartoons for Nickelodeon, which were showcased under Frederator's first series, Oh Yeah Cartoons, where a bunch of animators and third-party sources created 10-minute pilots to be broadcast under the series. Something similar to that of Cartoon Network's What a Cartoon, a series of shorts also created by Fred Seibert. And throughout Oh Yeah Cartoons' lifespan spawned 3 shorts from that series and transformed into 3 fully fledged TV series: Chalk Zone, My Life as a Teenage Robot, and the very popular Fairly Odd Parents. Frederator Studios have been doing pretty good for themselves, and in 2007, the studio decided to work on some web animation with their first cartoon being Internet People, a parody cartoon spoofing YouTube culture. This sparked Seibert's interest into making some animation on YouTube, and in 2012, Channel Frederator was born, along with a new adult animated channel, Cartoon Hanover. Now, Channel Frederator has since been more dedicated to highlighting other already successful shows, like Gravity Falls and Steven Universe, and making 107 facts about these shows. But Cartoon Hanover was a place for actual indie web animation at the time. You had shows like The Bravest Warriors, created by Pendleton Ward, Super Effers by James Kochalka. A personal favorite of mine is Chris P. Duck, created by Ralph Kidson. I love this art style. Chris is a very funny protagonist.
Hello, Mossy Rock. Hi, Mouldy Shoe. Good morning, Log. Hey, slightly less Mossy Rock. Stay strong.
Now, Cartoon Hanover has had some success getting their one-off shorts some kickback into making an actual series onto TV and streaming services. Their biggest cartoon at the time, being Puppy Cat, became so popular that a Kickstarter was launched and raised enough money to launch a reboot on Netflix. But of course, not every short is a success. And there has been a somewhat cult favorite on the channel, the 2014 short Blackford Manor.
What a house.
This atmospheric and eerie short was done by Ji-Woo Kim, who is the wife of Patrick McHale. McHale has been in the industry for a while, and is pretty much known for his creation Over the Garden Wall, which explains why this internet short kind of has that same mysterious vibe to it. In fact, McHale helped write the story along with Kim. This 6-minute short follows a newly hired maid named Josette Gray, working at the Blackford Manor, with a mysterious employer who is never seen. So, right off the bat, the short is a little different, as it tells its story through little 30-second snippets before going on to the next one. It can be a little distracting the first time watching, but it matches the whole tone of the short. The first snippet, we see Josette pulling out the curtains until she hears something moving in Lord Montague's room. After checking the door with no avail, she returns with a doodle on the window.
Hello there.
The second snippet, we see more of the employees of the mansion, a butler named Mr. Boggs and Mrs. Cook. Trying to find a way into Montague's room, Mr. Boggs explains to Josette that Lord Montague has been under the weather and should not be disturbed. This leads to Josette doing some snooping and noticing that Boggs moves in and out of Montague's room, the sudden random meat that they've been serving for meals, and Boggs' constant screeching when asked about the master. Then, the short does the unthinkable by subverting your expectations with a brand new twist.
Well, you only get a full moon once a month.
What do you mean, full moon?
The voice acting is phenomenal, with some of the biggest voices of the medium too. Ashley Burch plays Josette with that curious yet determined demeanor. Martin Rayner as Mr. Boggs gives that solemn and chilling, yet a little scared tone to him. And surprisingly, Mrs. Cook is voiced by Billy West, who I didn't recognize until I saw the behind the scenes footage. He's great as always. Honestly, this would have been a great series if they kept going. With the screen time we got, there's so much little details and character traits that could be expanded on. We still don't know too much on the Lord Montague's whereabouts, given that he's a supposed werewolf. I mean, even his portrait has a wolf's head cane. There's also little hints on Josette seemingly taking an interest in him, more so implying she has a crush. Also, her noting how to deal with bloodstains on clothing can imply that she has more of a troubled past than can be examined in a future series. Boggs' nervous wreck can also be further explained every time Montague is mentioned. And hey, the more Mrs. Cook, the better.
Is this lamb?
I doubt you've ever eaten this kind of meat before.
So, how come this never got a full-fledged series? It seems like it has a fan base, and other Cartoon Hangover shows got a few more episodes down the road. Why did this one not budge? Well, let's look at what was going on back in 2014. When Blackford Manor debuted, the adult animated web space was generally dominated by quirkier, fast-paced, and more overtly comedic shows. Bravest Warriors and Bee and Puppycat relied on bright colors, fantasy elements, and rapid-fire dialogue from every character. Blackford Manor was a lot more mute, a slow burn of a short that had the reliance on visual storytelling, but kind of failed as a laugh-out-loud show, something that was popular at the time. Which is a shame really, because this was such a stark contrast to its sibling shows and a breath of fresh air for the channel. The short's unique, gothic atmosphere and serialized micro-narrative structure was just so different from the rest of Cartoon Hangover's lineup, and it might have been a significant hurdle for a full series pickup. It also kinda sucks that this was on YouTube, a site where most viewers come for fast-paced brain rot and slop, leaving little patience for anything that takes their time. Attention spans are getting shorter, and most people probably don't want to sit through something that feels less engaging than over-the-top TikTok skits. Blackford Manor knows how to handle their pacing and set the mood, but that mood can cater to a very niche audience, no matter how loud of a voice they may be. Now, a 2021 novel of the short was made, written by J.W. Gray, which I don't know if this is an alternative name for Ji-Woo Kim, they both have J.W. in their name, but this novel actually does expand upon the short, consisting of 10 episodic chapters. In fact, the whole website of this novel drops a lot of backstory. When Josette got her first job as the maid of Blackford Manor, she dreamed it would lead to an exciting new life in a grand house serving lots of rich people. Instead, she found it to be an ancient, crumbling castle only inhabited by two eccentric servants, Mr. Boggs, a butler with face like death himself, and Mrs. Cook, a cook one could barely recognize as human. The mysterious young master of the house, Sir Montague, was nowhere to be found. Yet, the absent Sir Montague is Josette's greatest reason to stay in Blackford Manor. She has fallen hopelessly in love with the beautiful master whose handsome face can be seen in the millions of portraits that cover every corner of the labyrinthine house. Well, hot dingo, that's some spicy info. This novel was backed by a Kickstarter campaign and raised over $7,000 over a $3,000 goal. The illustrations even gave off the same look from the short, staying true to its animated roots. Look, the quality of Blackford Manor is undeniable, but I think the timing was just a stake to the heart here. By 2014, the gothic mystery niche was about to be defined by Patrick McHale's own success in Over the Garden Wall, which debuted the same year as Blackford Manor. They both have a distinct tone, with Blackford having a more drawing room mystery than folk horror, but the market could have been perceived as becoming saturated, especially with the creator's wife helming a project that carried a similar aesthetic shadow. I don't think it failed due to the lack of quality or vision. It likely failed as a pilot because it was too artistically niche and structurally unconventional for the platform's zeitgeist, and the existing demands of the animation market, which preferred that cartoons felt safer, broader, and more immediately conductive. But it still remains a beautiful, haunting piece of work that perfectly executed its short-form goal, with a pretty moderate fanbase, and a decent success that was the 2021 novel. But its success as a brief experiment was perhaps its undoing as a potential series. So, what has Cartoon Hangover been doing these past couple of years? Well, with what Frederator Studios has been doing with their YouTube channels, it kind of seems like they fell off big time. Even their flagship series, Bravest Warriors, hasn't been pulling any big numbers. And besides, sometimes the studio has had a bad habit greenlighting their pilots to Nickelodeon. I mean, remember the Adventure Time incident? Remember Nickelodeon wanting Fanboy and Chum Chum instead? With that being said, I am glad people are giving Blackford Manor more respect and praise than it received initially, and in due time, maybe the short will get a huge wave of popularity. But until then, we would have to look into a different universe of this underrated gem, and think of a cartoon that could have been.